Let me start the recording. We're recording this for purposes of sharing it later with participants. Hi, my name is Giovanna Guerrero Medina. I'm the director of the Yale Ciencia Initiative at Yale University. It's a STEM diversity outreach initiative. And with us today, we'll have a presentation from Dr. Barbara Kazmierzak. Hi, who's the director of the Yale School of Medicine MD PhD program and also associate professor of medicine and microbial pathogenesis here at Yale, and also Dr. Faye Rogers, who's associate professor of therapeutic radiology at Yale and also assistant director of the Yale School of Medicine MD PhD program and director of the BioMed SURF program. So we'll get started in a little bit, but before we start, I just have a couple of instructions for everybody. So you may have noticed that you're muted right now. We've muted everybody just to improve the quality of the audio, but feel free to, if you want to ask any questions, to unmute yourself. In order to do that, you just scroll to the bottom of your screen. There's a little microphone button there, and you can mute and unmute yourself. You can also use the chat function to ask questions during the webinar, and we'll be monitoring those and making sure that any questions you ask get answered, okay? So with that, I think we're ready to start. We're going to share the presentation, and let me make sure that works. Great. All right, so let's get started.
Okay. So hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Barbara Kazmierzak, and as Giovanna said, I'm the director of the MD-PhD program here at Yale. So 2 years ago, I and Tony Koleski, who's the director of the PhD programs here at Yale University, started BioMed SURF. What we wanted to do was to create a welcoming summer program for students who are interested in science, and to create this program at the medical school where we currently had no undergraduate research fellowship program running. Tony can't be here with me today to co-host this program, but I'm really fortunate to have Faye Rogers, who joined us as an assistant director for the MD-PhD program, and as Giovanna said, is now also the director of BioMed SURF. So I'm going to turn it over to Faye for the beginning, and she's going to tell you about our mission, our purpose, and the program.
Good afternoon or morning to everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you and give you a little bit of background information on our BioMed Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship. So what exactly is BioMed SURF? BioMed SURF is a research-intensive summer training program in the biomedical sciences for undergraduate students, particularly focused on members of underrepresented minorities. As you can see in this picture, we do have intense research for our participants, and this shows two of our participants that participated last summer. And they have very hands-on experience doing biomedical research. So what are the goals of the BioMed SURF program? Our ultimate goal is to identify underrepresented minority applicants who are interested in biomedical research, and we want to provide these students with an intensive research experience, particularly in biomedical research. It is our goal to cultivate participants with the knowledge, skills, and resources to successfully apply and complete graduate training programs in either PhDs or MD PhD programs. So we will ultimately like for our participants that participate in this program to be able to leave and be competitive, not only for a program as a Yale, but any other graduate or MD PhD programs at a similar institution. We are very committed to providing mentoring resources that not only extend during our program, but also beyond the program. And these mentoring resources includes not only a research faculty member, but also one-on-one mentoring between the participant and either our PhD graduate student or an MD PhD student. With the ultimate goal of this program, we are hoping to recruit underrepresented minority students to careers in biomedical research, with the ultimate goal of trying to diversify our workforce. So those are some of the things that we're trying to achieve. So what exactly is the BioMed SURF program here at Yale? So just to give you a little bit of a brief background, each of the students that are accepted into the program will receive a $4,500 stipend. In addition to this stipend, all housing is provided on the medical school campus, where you also will do your research. We will cover the cost of travel to and from New Haven, and up to about $500. I think one of the interesting and probably unique aspects of the program is that we also cover the travel and hotel expenses for one of your parents to attend the closing symposium. And this is very important to us because we want your family members to share in your accomplishments that you have worked so intensely over the summer, for them to be able to share in that. And we know that in order for you to be successful in a career in science and medicine and research in a whole, having family support is very important. So we would like to have your parents experience this with you also. So the program is a 9-week program at the Yale School of Medicine, and starts on June 5th and runs until August 2nd of next year. And you will participate in a research project under the supervision of a Yale faculty. And these research projects are biomedically based, and they can occur in multiple areas, including biochemistry, cancer biology, molecular biology, neuroscience, just to name a few, microbiology. And each participant will have hands-on training in research techniques, data acquisition, and analysis. In addition to doing research on a daily basis, you will also have the opportunity to participate in a weekly journal club, where our hope is to be able to give you the skills and to read a scientific paper critically and be able to understand the experiments and the results that are described within that manuscript. You will also participate in peer mentoring forums. One of the other things that are an important part of the curriculum is to have career development sessions where our ultimate goal is to focus on preparing for graduate or MD, PhD programs, so that we would like to give you that skill set so that you can successfully apply for one of these programs upon completion of the program. And finally, at the close of our 9-week program, we have a presentation of the research that you conducted while you were here at Yale, which will be in the form of a poster and also a very small oral synopsis of what the research and your accomplishments. And during this closing ceremony, your parents will be able to attend so that they can share in your achievements. So the Yale BioMed SURF program takes place on the Yale campus, the School of Medicine, where the Yale School of Medicine is renowned for biomedical research. So it's the ultimate place for you to get your feet wet. Yale was founded in 1810. As Barbara originally said to you guys, this program is done in conjunction with the graduate studies in combined programs in biomedical and biological sciences, or the BBS, which there are several tracks in which you will be able to participate in research. And I named some of them to you previously, which also include computational biology, immunology, microbial biology, molecular medicine, plant and molecular biology. And so in one of these programs, we'll be able to find a research faculty that you can work on a research program. Also, the MD PhD program at Yale, which provides training in both medicine and research. This is really designed for individuals that's interested in becoming a physician scientist. And just to kind of re-emphasize, our ultimate goal for the BioMed SURF program is to facilitate and to cater towards students that are very interested in doing research, whether it is to eventually pursue a PhD or MD PhD, but really we're not focusing on students that just really want to go on and have a clinical career, but really have an emphasis on doing research in general. So Yale actually is located in New Haven, Connecticut, which is in the southern part of Connecticut along the shoreline. New Haven has about 250,000 people as part of its population, and it's approximately an hour and a half away from New York City and probably 2.5 hours south of Boston. So we're kind of centrally located. New Haven, if you're interested in doing outdoor activities, has really great parks where you can do hiking and biking at East Rock Park or Sleeping Giant State Park. There are several museums, the Yale Peabody Museum for Natural History, just to give an example. Also very good music scene if you're into symphonies, classical music, jazz. But I think also one thing that's important to mention is that New Haven was named best foodie city in the country in 2014. It has, even for such a small city, has 56 Zagat rated restaurants. And probably you might not be aware of, but New Haven is actually the birthplace of pizza and the hamburger. So I think if you were to ask Yale students, they would have a very big conversation as to whether Pepe's or Sally's has the best pizza, but you'll have to come here and decide that for yourself. But definitely New Haven is a nice city to be in and to be able to participate in this program.
So we're hoping that one of the participants from last year's program, Daniel Colon Rios, will be able to join us and give you a little bit of the students' perspective. I'm not sure if he's been able to actually log on to the meetings. We're going to keep trying to get him on board. But while we're doing that, what I want to do is just keep going with the presentation and turn to some of the more practical aspects of how do you apply to BioMed SURF. And I've based this a bit on the questions that we get when we talk to students at Abercrombie or SACNAS about the program. So first off, you see that link on the slide. That's the link that will take you to the actual description of BioMed SURF. There's also a click box on that link page, which will open the application. And this online application can be initiated, stopped, come back to at any time. The only limitation is that you keep working on this application from the same computer where you initiated it. So it's important to keep that in mind. Don't do it on some computer you can't get back to. And I just want to alert you to the due date for applications. It's January 13th. So hopefully this gives you enough time to prepare your application and get letters of recommendation. We will review all of the applications at the end of January and in the beginning of February, and we'll notify all of the participants that we can offer a spot to by the end of February next year. And oftentimes students ask me, do I need to tell you what research lab or what research mentor I want to work with, either when I'm applying or when I'm accepted? So when you are accepted, we spend a lot of one-on-one time with each of the participants learning about their particular interests in science, any experiences they might have had that inform that choice. And then we do a very careful job of actually matching you to a research mentor. You may want to work with somebody specific, and sometimes we'll say, no, we don't think that's a great idea. And it might just be because that particular research mentor isn't going to be in New Haven during that summer, or they might already have a lab that's chock full and they can't pay attention to yet one more student. So what we try to do is work with you so you get the scientific experience you want, but you're also in an environment where everyone is committed and excited to have you there. So a lot of times people say, who's eligible to apply for BioMed SURF? So as Dr. Rogers said at the beginning, our focus is really on diversifying the scientific workforce in the United States so that the people who end up being the professors, physicians, scientists look a lot like the people who benefit from their work. So with that goal in mind, we are really encouraging students who belong to underrepresented minority groups as defined by the NIH and listed on this slide to really seriously think about applying to BioMed SURF. We're also aware that people who have disabilities are often underrepresented in the sciences, and our campus is very open, well-equipped, capable to help students who have disabilities, and we encourage you, if you're listening, to apply to our program, and we'll work with you to make sure that you're incredibly successful when you get here, as we will do with everybody. A lot of students say that they don't have the same sorts of exposures to scientists, to physician scientists when they're growing up, and they don't even think about applying for such a career. And this is a group of students that we think we'd love to see consider science and come into our profession. And so if you are a disadvantaged student or a student who's first in your family to college, a student who grew up in a rural area or in an inner city where there's not a lot of physician scientists or scientists around, we welcome you to apply to our program. And I'd like to make a special point of saying that students who have DACA status are eligible and also encouraged to apply. And as the statement at the bottom says, I know that some of the students who are interested in our program are already participating at their own home institutions in MARC, RISE, Bridges to the Doctorate programs, and all of you are eligible and should definitely check us out. Okay, we can go now. So one of the things that I think is unique about our program is that we really want to have students who are early in their college careers think about science and try it out. So we're very encouraging to freshmen and sophomores, so you'd be a rising sophomore, rising junior that summer, to apply to BioMed SURF. I know a lot of programs want to have prior research experience, but we realized if we always keep asking for prior research experience, how are you ever going to get that first lab job, that first research experience? But we want to make sure that you're prepared to benefit from what is a really intensive curriculum, both in the laboratory and also in the classroom. And so we're going to ask you, if you're early in college and you haven't worked in a lab before, to tell us about the science courses that you've taken in college, to tell us what your grades are, so that we basically know that you have a foundation from which you can read these scientific papers and understand your summer project. And if you have any sorts of classes that have a lab experience, tell us if you like them and why. In practice, we get applications from students who are in all years of college training, and we do accept students who are juniors when they apply. And so in practice, we end up having a mixed program with students who are rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And I think that everyone manages to learn a lot from one another. I do want to say that if you're going to graduate before the program starts in June 2017, we're sorry, but we can't accept you. And the reason is really that there are other programs that are geared towards post-bac students who do a very good job of preparing students in that position for graduate school or MD, PhD programs. And we also want to have time to, make an impact on how you progress through college and what you're interested in and what you do. And if you wait too late to apply, we feel like we really can't have as much of an impact on you and your family as we'd like. So what goes into an application? I think the best way to find this out is to actually open the application, write in your name, which means that you've started it, and then scroll through it. And you can always come back and fill in things, but that will give you an idea of the sorts of things that are asked for. The main points that I want to make, though, is that there are several pieces that you're going to need to prepare in advance. And I think the most important one is to have letters of recommendation from two professors, two faculty members who know you really well. So a lot of times when you're asking for a letter of recommendation, it's kind of hard to know what you should want in that letter, who's going to write the strongest letter for you. So I thought I'd give you a few hints from our perspective of what's important when we read about your letters. So a letter written by somebody who knows you well is going to talk about you specifically, and specifically what you have accomplished, what makes you stand out, what makes you different from other students, what makes you particularly suited for coming to Yale for BioMed SURF. Because we're looking for students who are curious and interested in science, letters that talk about your curiosity and your creativity are always great to read. Science is not so much about being really smart or being really brilliant. It's actually about being interested and curious and then working very hard. Scientists are probably amongst the hardest working people that I know, because we're really trying to discover something that nobody has discovered or answered before. If the answers were easy, they would already be known. So we're really trying to push the boundaries of knowledge. It sounds kind of glorious and, big words, but it's really what we're doing. So in order to do that, you have to be hardworking, you have to be determined, you have to be a little bit pig-headed sometimes, And you have to be resilient because a lot of times science is experiments that fail and don't come out. So if your letter writers recognize that you're the sort of person who doesn't get discouraged by disappointment and they can write about that in your letter of recommendation, that's really important for us to read. And lastly, your letter writers hopefully will be people who know how you go about learning science and doing science in lab classes, in classrooms, in other sorts of research experiences that you might have participated in. And so it's very important that your letter writers talk about that when they write your letter. So the last thing, as somebody who not only reads those letters of recommendation, but has students who ask me to write them, is ask your professors early, okay? Ask them, give them a lot of time so that they can prepare a good letter. They're not going to do a good job if they're writing at the last minute, and they might be too busy and say no. So think carefully about the people who know these things that I just described about you and ask them to write a letter for you soon. Give them plenty of time to prepare it, okay? So as you scroll through the application, another thing that will come up is a box asking for your SAT scores. So why are we asking for SATs? The application was designed to request these because they're a standardized measure that helps us compare students who are applying from very different schools from all over the US and its territories. Especially if you're a freshman and you haven't taken a lot of college level science courses and you don't have a very long transcript from college, the SATs give us another marker of how well you might be prepared to enter our science intensive curriculum. I don't want anybody running off to register and take the SAT scores just for a BioMed SURF application though. So if you haven't taken the SAT, you can provide your ACT scores, just enter them in the same box and write a little note saying, this is what I took. And likewise, if you are, for example, a student in Puerto Rico and you've taken the College Board University Evaluation and Admissions tests, provide those scores to us and we will use them to guide our decisions, okay? So hopefully that's clear. No one has to run off and take extra SATs. And lastly, I think the most important thing is if you have SAT scores that you think aren't as strong as you'd want them to be, but you're in college and you're taking science classes and you're doing great, that's going to be very important to us. So please send us your transcripts along with those board scores and we will take everything into consideration. Okay. So we do have an essay in our application, and I want to say that the essay is important because it's the way that you tell us about yourself. So in addition to those letters from people who know you, this is your chance to explain why you want to participate in a program like BioMed SURF. Why is the opportunity to do research at an institution like Yale important to you? Specifically, why is it important to do biomedical research? Why do you want to learn more about a career as a scientist or a physician scientist? These things are how you basically are going to convince us that you really are going to benefit from the experience here this summer. And so in helping you prepare a good application essay, I thought it would be important to say a few things that our program isn't. So our program is really focused on research. So if you're somebody who really knows that you want to do clinical medicine and you've kind of settled on that and that's your goal in life, you'll probably be disappointed by our program because our focus is on reading science, talking about science, doing science with other scientists. So it's really for those people who want to try out what living life as a scientist is like. We also can't allow students to take time off from the program to do things like go take their MCAT exams. So we don't want you to be disappointed if you already have those sorts of things planned for the summer because they won't mesh well with the program that we have in mind. We are aware that the students who are coming here are curious about different ways in which a science education, in which a PhD can be used. And so we're going to do a lot of work to make sure that you meet a broad range of academic scientists, of physician scientists, scientists who are working in the private sector, in pharmaceutical companies, or even in consulting. And we do our best to match interested students in shadowing experiences. So if you're coming here because you're thinking a lot about an MD PhD program and you want to know what it's like to be a physician scientist, we can match you to do some shadowing, but shadowing is not the main purpose of BioMed SURF. So again, just so no one's disappointed, I want to make that very clear. And lastly, we're going to provide a lot of guidance to students about how to prepare themselves to be scientists. So how to present your research orally, how to do a great poster, how to write an abstract, how to read a scientific paper. We're going to talk about how you prepare a PhD application or an MD PhD. Have you one-on-one mentored by students who are currently in those programs. But we don't have any sort of specific programming geared towards the MD, no MCAT prep courses, nothing like that. So if that's important to you, I want to be upfront, that's not what our program is about. So these are the things that your completed application has to include. The information on the online form, transcripts from all the institutions that you've attended after graduating high school, the board score results, proof of residency, and the names of your 2 recommenders. Your letter recommenders need to send their info to our office, and the application has all of that contact information. So the last slide that we're going to show has some of that contact info. Our coordinator, Ms. Yolanda Quinones, is available by telephone or by email to answer your questions. Yoli is incredibly excited about this program, and she's a great help. So I encourage everybody who has a question, big or small, don't hesitate to call us. So I think at this point, we're going to try to turn it off over to questions. And I'm actually going to plug my computer in because it's telling me that the battery is running really low. So I'm going to turn it over to Giovanna and Faye for a moment.
Okay, everybody. So Faye and Barbara, we had a question about if you have taken multiple exams, for example, the SAT and the College Board, is there a preference for a particular, to report the grades from one of them over the other?
So I think that we don't have a particular preference for either test. As Barbara said previously, we just want to use it as a benchmark to measure, compare students from different school backgrounds. So you can send the results from a particular test that you feel that you performed the strongest on.
Okay, and I want to encourage you, the viewers, the students who are participating, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Again, the button is a little microphone icon, and you can mute and unmute yourself, or use the chat box to ask your questions. And if anybody has any questions, just feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I have a couple of other questions here. Can you tell me what sort of mentoring is provided to the students throughout the program?
Sure. So I think mentoring is really important for us. Like I said earlier, we do have one-on-one mentoring. Each student is paired with either a graduate student from our MD, from our PhD program, or a student that's in the MD PhD program. We try to match a mentor with a student that have kind of similar interests. That student can serve as a mentor throughout your time here at Yale during the program. In addition to that, we do take very seriously the research labs that we place you in, so that we know that each of those research mentors are very interested in mentoring students. So I think our mentoring approach is twofold: to have both a peer mentor and also a Yale faculty that is very interested in your success.
Okay. Danielle, are you logged on? Do you want to unmute yourself? So we have a previous participant from the BioMed SURF program who just joined the call. Daniel, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Great. Okay. So I'll pass it on to Faye and Dr. K to ask you a couple of questions.
I can barely hear you guys.
Can you hear us?
Daniel, very good to, I think I can see you on my screen. So thanks for joining us. What I wanted to do was, Faye had started off by introducing the program and a little bit of the experiences that students had in a very generic way. But I was wondering, as a prior participant, could you just take a few minutes and tell us what it was like to arrive in Haven and be matched to a lab and how the summer went?
So first day I got into New Haven, it was a very rainy day, and I thought it was going to be like that the whole summer, which was kind of, it worried me a little bit. But after I met the coordinator of the graduate students, I was very impressed. Their people were very nice. They just took us in, and they wanted us to be adapted very quickly. They wanted us to feel at home. That was very good. In terms of the mentor matching, I mean, I love both of my mentors, like my graduate mentor and my postdoc and my PI. They're great. I think that's very important when you're over there in a summer program like that, to have someone who supports you, who wants you to be there. Sorry about that. Who wants you to be there, who wants you to succeed. So I think that, I mean, that was a great experience. I mean, I loved it, and I can't wait to come back. So, you guys hear me? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe one of the things I could say is, now that Daniel's on board along with us, are there any questions from the audience to either Daniel or to Faye and myself about the aspect of BioMedSURF?
Hi, I have a question, like what particular key qualities do you guys usually look for in interns?
Do you want me to take that? I can take that one, Faye, since I'm on.
In the essay, how
I'm sorry? I think I lost the end of your question, Nicole, so if I don't answer all of it.
are there any, okay,
Okay, I heard the first
do
part.
I repeat it?
I heard the part about what are the qualities that you look for in applicants. So I'll answer that part. And then if there was more to the question, then ask me the second part. I think there are a couple things. We want the applicants to come to the program to have enough preparation so that you're not lost when you get here. So functionally what that means is that you have some science class background, even if you've never worked in a research lab before, so that when your PI or your postdoc mentor tries to explain to you the reasons for the project that you'll be doing, that you have, you know, a growing understanding of what it is. So we don't want you to join a lab and just be basically pipetting liquid from one place to another. We want you to realize that science is asking an important question and then being able to make progress towards answering that question. And so one of the qualities that we look for in the applicants is, you know, that foundation of science. I think another thing that we want is people who are really seriously interested in science. It doesn't have to be that you've already worked in a lab and published a paper, but that you've had some sort of experience that has really made you curious about this and that you're very serious about it. So if you can convey that, you know, why you want to come here, that's another quality that's important to us. And then I think, you know, science is about people who are fun, who are curious, who are collaborative, who want to work with other people. So the more you can tell us about those qualities and why you think that you're suited to being a scientist in your essay, that's something that we're going to be looking for. Were there other parts of the question that I haven't gotten to?
No, you answered them all. Thank you.
Okay. Daniel, Faye, do you want to add anything to my answer?
It's a hard question. I think what I can see is that people in the BioMed SURF administration and coordinators, they look for passion, basically, for willing to be compromised for science, who has passion for science. And I think that's basically the most important thing, because all these summer programs are preparing for either PhD or MD-PhD, and both careers are very sacrificing. And I think that they want to have, the way I see it is that they have potential candidates when we apply. I mean, I think that's what it's all about, having passion and love for science. So as long as you show that in your personal statement, your resume, your CV, your transcript, everything, and I think that's the best thing. I mean, the most important thing.
I think we have a couple of questions in the chat. So John asked, do many program participants publish their research in academic journals?
So we've been running the program for 2 summers now. And so we're starting to survey our participants in terms of what the outcomes are. We have had students who've made actually key observations during their 9 weeks in the lab, which is pretty cool, right? Because you start from nothing and you go somewhere. And we have students who are working hard to actually come back for a second summer of research. And so when we say ongoing mentoring in our descriptions, what that means is that after your summer here as a BioMed SURF participant, you can't come back and be BioMed SURF twice, because then we wouldn't be reaching additional students. But we work very hard with the faculty to then come up with other mechanisms, R01 diversity supplements, other routes of funding for students who want to come back and keep working in the same lab. And so even though I'm not aware of any students who have published anything, Faye's raising her hand, so I think the answer is wrong. So I was not aware of anyone, but I think she's going to contradict me right now, so I'm going to let her talk.
So actually, one of our students from last summer did participate in a project that was ongoing, and their work was a part of a contributing figure that later was submitted for publication. So it has happened, yes.
And I think what I want to add is that I expect it to keep happening, because everyone knows it takes a long time for a science paper to actually get finished and published. But one of the things that's made me incredibly proud is that both after the first summer and after this past summer, we've had students present their work at national meetings. So I think we had 12 students at Abercams this past summer, this past fall, out of a total of 16 students. And we had 4 poster award winners, one of which was Daniel. So we were incredibly proud of him.
That's wonderful. We actually have a question for Daniel. What was the most challenging part of the program for you?
So let's see. The most challenging part was, I think, organizing myself, because it's a great program, but it's very intense. I mean, you have to go to the lab, you have to go to journal clubs, you have to go to research mentor talks, you have to go to peer mentoring. It's a lot of things, but at the end, it's totally worth it. A lot of things that I learned in the summer, I've been applying them to school right now. How to organize myself is that's the key thing, because I think organization, it's the key to everything. Like, you can do a lot of things as long as you know how to distribute time. And I think that's one of the things that was kind of challenging, because even though you're doing research, you also want to have fun with your other BioMed surfers. You want to go out, you want to have fun, you want to go to the beach or whatever. So I think it's just organizing everything was basically the most challenging thing. Also, when things don't go as you expect in the lab, when you have to repeat an experiment, when you think you got everything, when you do it again, it's not working. Those are the things that are kind of they bother you a bit, and they may seem challenging, but I mean, if you have a good mentor, that's basically everything you need. I mean, as long as you have that person that supports you, will be by your side, you're gonna be fine. And the BioMed SURF administration and coordination, PIs and everyone is gonna help you out, so everything's gonna be great.
There's a couple more questions, unless you, Barbara or Faye, do you want to give any feedback about Daniel's comments or add anything to that?
I guess I can add one thing. So Daniel, you said something that was really important to me. It's you got some messages that we hoped you would get by participating in the program. I wanted to ask you one question in addition. Did it change what you're thinking about doing in life? Or is that too personal?
No, it definitely did. I mean, I've done research before the program. I've been doing research for maybe a year before the program, but it's in school, and you have classes and you have other things to do. You're not all the time in the lab. But this semester, this summer, I was every day in the lab, and even though it may sound a bit overwhelming and a bit tiring, I loved it. I mean, if I could be the whole day in the lab, the whole night, I would be there. And then sometimes I would get I would get scolded by my PI, like, you have to leave early, you can't stay that late. But I mean, it's I mean, as long as you like it and you have passion for it, I mean, this summer is when I knew that I really wanted to do an PhD. Like, with all the experience I acquired, it was definitely great. It definitely changed my life.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat related to the application. Can recommenders send letters of recommendation in advance of a student having submitted an application? And then there's also questions about proof of residency.
So the answer about the recommendations is yes. Just make sure that people who are sending letters are listed on your application so we can match them up and that they mention your name. Proof of residency. So what most students will provide is a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, then I think the easiest thing to do, or you have some sort of, state recognized form of ID that would let you vote, would be to call Yoli or to email her, and then we can talk and one-on-one and just make sure that you're sending something that is comfortable for us.
Okay, and then if you're so someone is a freshman, so they're entering their second semester as a freshman, and they are asking if they should apply after their grades have been provided and they have a cumulative GPA, or can they apply now without that information included in their transcripts?
We haven't really worked out who's answering what questions, but in the past we have accepted students who basically are applying right at the end of their first semester in college. They're freshmen. If you can get your grades to us, maybe an unofficial transcript of them, just so we have the official grades to look at by February, that will be great. You should start your application even if you don't know your grades, and just provide them to us when you get them. Is that helpful to whoever asked the question? If it's not, send another chat and we'll go into it some more.
Okay, and then Shami asks if there's room for flexibility in terms of the research mentors you're assigned to, or if once you're in the program, can you seek other mentors or change your mentor?
So I think Barbara touched on this earlier, that one of our primary goals is to make sure that you have a good research experience. And part of that is making sure that we have a mentor, a research mentor for you that's committed to having students in the lab and that are really committed to making sure that you have a good research experience. So we take all of this into consideration when choosing a lab to place you in addition to the fact that we want to make sure that it is something that you are interested in, that particular area of research. So I think also Barbara mentioned that sometimes you may feel that you want to work in a particular lab, but that PI may not have space for you at that time because of other students in their lab, and they might not have space. So that's also something that might not work out necessarily if you request a particular individual. But we try to do our best to make sure that we place you in a good research environment that not only will give you hands-on research experience, but that will also provide the mentorship that's necessary for you to be successful.
So the only thing I could add to Faye's answer is that in the 2 years that we've done the program, we had one student who showed up in her lab the first day and then said, "Oh no, I think I want to change labs." And we'd actually spent about 3 months setting up the match. So the student had been in touch with her PI beforehand. And she had also been in touch about the project. So he said, think about this overnight, give it a week. And the student ended up loving the experience and saying that it was a perfect match. So I think one of the things to realize is when you first come into this new environment and you first meet somebody, it's not always a good idea to sort of let the very first impressions you have kind of guide your thinking. So if you have a research mentor in a situation that we've misjudged where it's just not working, then we will make a switch. But as I said, it's never happened because I think what most people realize is that the mentors that you have and the way they teach you and the way they sort of believe in you, that's much more important than whether you're working on, a gene that's involved in breast cancer or a gene that's involved in prostate cancer or a gene that's involved in, neural tumors. If you want to learn oncology, you'll be in one of those labs and hopefully you'll have the best scientists working with you.
Okay, Shami says in the chat that his question was not necessarily switching mentors, but research interest changing. I don't know if you have anything to add with regards to that.
I mean, I can speak to that a little bit. It's the advice that I give to graduate students who are in our MD PhD program. They're often worried about, am I choosing the right lab for my PhD? Do I have to imagine and know what my research interests are going to be 15 years from now when I'm a scientist? And I tell them that your interests are, of course, going to change. As you learn more and you learn about new questions, you're going to become interested in things that you don't know about yet. But the process of being in a lab, of doing a rotation, a summer program, even a graduate thesis, is also about learning how to think like a scientist. And so the skills that you learn working in a microbiology lab, how to break down a problem and attack it, are skills that you can apply to another research interest. So with very few exceptions, if you're interested in learning what science is like, and you have a rough idea that you want to be working with your hands at the bench or you want to be sitting in front of a computer screen, then what you learn is going to be able to transfer to a lot of different research interests.
Yes, that was a great question and great answer. The skills you learn as a scientist are transferable to an infinite number of problems. Iyani has one more question. So if you're accepted in the program, what are the opportunities for networking after the summer? Are there any opportunities for students to come back together in any form?
So I think that definitely we do and encourage students that want to come back. We will try to find alternative means for you to return. As Barbara said earlier, we can't have returning students be BioMed surfers again for a second year, because then that wouldn't give us the opportunity to give other students an opportunity to share in this kind of experience. But we do work with the PIs whose lab you've worked in to try and find alternative funding means for you to return for another summer after you've completed the BioMed SURF program.
I mean, the other sorts of follow-ups that happen, I mentioned that we had 12 students who are presenting posters at Abercams this year, and I think one student at SACNES. And the year before we had, I think, 7 or 8 students at Abercams. And so I've been to both of those meetings. Other people involved with the program have been there. Like this past year, we went out for dinner together. We also keep in touch with students. So when somebody is applying for a different research program, is applying for a travel award, is applying for a Fulbright, is applying for graduate school. So we have 5 students from our BioMed SURF program in just the past 2 years who are currently submitting PhD applications to Yale, which we're incredibly proud of. We're looking for more of them to be applying to the PhD and MD PhD programs in the coming years. And so part of our outgoing connection with you is that we help you with those applications. We help you with letters of recommendation. Lastly, there's a Facebook page that runs for the participants in the program where they keep in touch with one another.
All right, Danielle, do you want to share your experience in the months after you participated in the program?
I'm sorry, did you say months after?
Yeah, after the summer.
So it was very depressing when I came back home. You make a family over there, and I mean, you live with, in my case, I lived with 15 other BioMed surfers, and I got very close to them. It was pretty hard when we said goodbye, because I mean, we lived 2 months together and we made an amazing friendship. So those first weeks after the program, it was kind of sad. I mean, you know, you're leaving everything behind and you don't know if you're going to see them again. After that, a lot of the techniques and skills I learned in the lab, I have applied them, not necessarily to my lab here where I'm doing research, but I have applied them to my courses. Critical thinking, these techniques that they teach you in class, especially in terms of lab, like jumping from the lab I was in at Yale and then coming back to my lab over here. Journal clubs. I mean, journal clubs help me so much when reading papers, and that's just something that it's very important in the science career, how to read, how to express yourself. I think that's one of the things that helped me a lot. I think something very important is that you should stay in touch with everyone. I mean, it's very hard to keep in touch with everyone, but most of the people that you can from the program, because I mean, nowadays networking is everything. I mean, if you want, it's literally everything. And in my case, I want to come back. So if I just stop talking with my PI or with the program directors or something, no, that wouldn't help me. So yeah. What else? Oh, you're definitely gonna keep in touch with the BioMed surfers. I mean, yesterday we were talking. I mean, we talk basically every week, so it's kind of hard because you know you're not gonna see them in a long time, but I mean, they're still there.
Wonderful. So I think we have time for one last question if there's anybody that has anything pressing. If not, then I'll pass it on to Barbara and Faye for last comments.
I just lost my screen there, guys. So I think we told you, you know, the mechanics of the program. I'm so glad that Daniel was on board, because what makes me happy is introducing people who haven't had a chance to be in New Haven, to be at Yale, to be working with, you know, my great colleagues and friends, to what a warm, welcoming, supportive community this is. I came to Yale after living in a lot of different places, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. And so I was coming to this really little town that I, you know, didn't know anything about 15 years ago. And so I've been incredibly happy with all the like support and resources that I as a MD PhD scientist had when I was starting out my new lab. And I just hope that I have the opportunity to share this really cool place with you guys as well.
So I guess in closing, I just would like to encourage all of you to apply to our BioMed SURF program. I feel, you know, I think Daniel kind of expressed, I feel the sentiments of the majority of students that have participated, that it has been a life-changing experience for them, and that we are very much a family, and we keep in touch with our students, and we really want to form relationships with you that we can help you to become successful scientists and help you along that journey. And so we really hope that as you do this application process. If you have any questions, please feel free to be in touch with Yoli. She's very excited about this program and really willing to help as much as she can to help you submit a successful application. So we really hope to see applications from all of you, and hopefully maybe we'll meet you this summer, well, coming summer.
Great. And if anybody has any additional questions, like Faye said, please contact the program. The email address is md.phd@yale.edu, md.phd@yale.edu. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you soon at Yale.